right, Bruno, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, glad to be here.
I know. I wanted to talk about your location here in Orlando. You have 2 locations now. Tell us how you got started in pizza in Orlando.
So pizza in Orlando, my first foray into that was a year before I actually opened this location. It was a pop-up, aptly named Pizza Bruno.
That's right.
Outside of Red Light, which is a local craft beer bar. They kind of like pioneered the craft beer kind of movement here in Orlando. And I had a food cart outside their second iteration for a number of years. I think like 5 years prior to Pizza Bruno pop-up. So I started it while I was on like a leave of absence from my real job, which was running a pizzeria restaurant in New Smyrna called Third Wave.
Okay.
So I started doing pop-ups, and it was like only 40 pizzas a day, and it was with the Weber pizza grill thing. It was it was not great. So
that was before Gosdi's and Unis and all that stuff.
Totally all before. That was the only real option was that, and I had a Weber like just sitting in my garage, and I got the piece and then realized it didn't work. But I figured something out. But I was doing that for about, I would say 2 months, like once a week, while I had some family stuff going on, and I was having to take care of my dad. But and then I eventually went back to the job I had because I had a little bit more time. But that itch was still there to do a restaurant. And that year, well, no, I take it back. So 2015 and then 2016, in about January, I found this wonderful restaurant we're sitting in on Craigslist. There was nothing in it. The walls were painted some other weird color.
Was it a restaurant?
Yeah, it was a pizzeria. Well, it was Pizzeria Italian restaurant called Sopranos for a long time.
Like the TV show?
Yeah, like the TV show. I think it was there for at least 15-ish years.
Wow.
Maybe even longer, maybe almost 20. It was here for a while. I remember I came here and ate like a million years ago. I think it was 2004 or something like that, 5. Because this is not a side of town that I was ever very familiar with or, at. I just happened to be, a long time ago I ate here. But I found it on Craigslist. Remembered the location, kind of, but there was nothing in here at all. It was empty, and it was real. It wasn't a scam, because I was like, dude, this guy's going to ask for a deposit, and they'll never see him again.
I'll never be able to get in there. It's going to be gone.
But it was for real. The only downside is when previous tenants left, they like ripped the hood out of the ceiling.
Oh God.
Out in back. So I didn't get a hood or gas. Like there's gas lines and stuff where a kitchen was, but there was no hood, which is like super unfortunate because that's like a major expense.
Yeah, huge.
But they did not take the heat hood where the pizza oven was up front. So I was like, cool, we could just put a chimney there and put a wood-fired oven, which is exactly what I was doing at the time. So
I remember talking to you, and I remember talking to, you know who I talked to, Peter from Fiero?
Okay, yeah.
And he was like, you got to talk to Bruno because I was telling him I'm going to do these interviews. I want to go on the road, and I want to talk to pizzerias. He's like, you got to talk to Bruno if you're in Orlando. He was like one of our older customers.
Yeah, they've been super great since the very beginning. They're just awesome. They've always been a part of this place from the very start. Still, I talked to Peter the other week at the
Pizza Summit.
Yeah. Caught up, and it's always good seeing those guys. They're there for you no matter what.
But you really bootstrapped this restaurant, right?
Yeah, I bootstrapped it with no dollars. So I had a little bit of money. So not like it's not like I didn't have a lot of I didn't have a lot of money when you talk about opening a restaurant. A lot of money, like $40,000 is not a lot of money to open a restaurant, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I gave the first last security, and I'm like, that was it was like 10 grand. That was the biggest check I ever cut. I was like, oh no.
Now what?
Yeah. Now what? They gave me 90 days, I think, no rent. So I just legit got in here, and the first thing I did was rip up the floor.
So 90 days, no rent, to someone who's listening means you have 90 days to get this place open to start generating revenue.
Yes.
Or you're going to pay rent and there's no revenue coming in.
Yes. So a little bit stressful, but I didn't know any better. And I was just so stubborn that I was just I'm doing everything myself. And I just finagled my way into cheaper options, our IKEA pendant lights, that were $10 each, and
you think of it, 90 days too seems like a long time, but when you're dealing with contractors and city permits and all that stuff, that's nothing.
Yeah, it goes by so fast. And I was working still. I was working full time. at the other restaurant. I was the executive chef of a 100-seat restaurant.
Oh, wow.
An hour away.
So you just come here nights and
Yeah.
well, not even nights. If you're a chef, you're probably coming in here days and weekends, right?
No, I was here at night. So I would work usually about, I'd leave my house at 9 because it's an hour drive. I'd work from 10 to about 8 or 9. Hour drive back, I'd work here till 1, 2, 3 in the morning.
Wow.
And just do it again every day.
And you just built everything, tables, like the bar,
So
and
yeah,
everything?
everything was bargain bin. The tables were bargain bin. These were some of the best ROI ever. These were $20 each, and that's 7.5 years ago, and they are still kicking. I was like, there's no way. I had to like varnish them, and I did strip them. They were from a failed restaurant in town, but you know, these were cheap.
Where'd you find these?
They from this restaurant supply I worked with in Sanford. I was literally texting the guy today. I've worked with them for years. So
Yeah.
they just have, you know, random cheap stuff, and I pilfer their warehouse.
It's funny how when you own a restaurant, like there's those stores that sell like restaurant equipment and supplies, and when you own a restaurant or a pizzeria,
yeah.
you can hang out there for hours and just be like,
Yes.
make a wish list of
I
things
might
you want.
need this.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I'm buying it. I don't need it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's so funny.
So he had these. They were. I think he charged me $20 mainly for the stand. Like the that was 20, and then the tops were 5. So those were cheap. I just had to refinish them. He had those weird, cool tables. I think those were from actually a Donato's Pizzeria, which was down the street. The bar was cool because the top is, I believe it's cypress.
Okay.
The owner of Third Wave, my former bosses, one of them, he's a woodworker, and he does crazy cool woodwork, and he gave me that, like finished off, and he built
Just
the bar
gave it to
for
you.
me. Yeah, that was cool. And then I cladded the outside with the leftover crate for the chimney, for the oven. So I just
awesome.
like cleaned them up, varnished them, and tacked it on, and found some cool metal pieces from Lowe's, and that was the bar finish. And literally everything else is just kind of like either found like all the art or I had it. The only equipment we really bought or brought in was the oven.
Which is from Fiero?
Yeah, they came and built it on site, and
Did they really?
Yeah, it was super cool. I was like, oh, they're gonna take like a couple days. They flew in, got it in the front door, and they were like, well, we have a plane to catch at 5. I'm like, dude, it's noon. You're gonna be done? Like, oh yeah, we'll be done in a couple hours. It blew my mind. So now it's like it's crazy. You think it takes so long, but they're super fast. And I think they get faster because they built the other one equally as fast.
Yeah, they just do that all. That's their thing.
That's the thing.
It's
Super
like
quick.
you making a pizza can be done in 10 seconds, whereas somebody else would take 10 minutes.
Yeah, they just like knock it out, and then they're like, see you later.
What
Back
kind of
to the
oven do you
airport.
have?
So the first oven was Pavesi RPM 140 gas wood. We went with the gas because we had the gas lines, and also I was thinking about during the day if we have to do prep because we didn't actually have an oven of any sort or like actual cooking like equipment.
Just
like,
the pizza oven.
just the pizza oven. We had a couple induction burners, but like no other like oven thing. So
So everything you cooked in the beginning was in the pizza oven?
yeah, for a number of years up until COVID, really.
Wow.
Yeah, like meatballs, everything we had to cook had to come out of there. So it was tricky, but the gas assist was helpful, mainly in that regard, like just to make sure that like it got
Speed it up a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit more consistency on that, but you know, all the food came out of there at night. At night, we didn't use the gas. We had to use wood just to keep it hot enough. Because all the pizza, all the hot food, everything, and it just like, man, it got intense.
That's great. Did you create the menu when you first opened?
Yeah.
You
yeah.
yourself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I had like grand ambitions for it to be a little bit bigger. And I realized the first night I opened, the menu was too big. And it was was a disaster. Because I was used to, where I was running, the restaurant I was running, I'd been there for 3.5 years. And it was like, and all we had there was a wood-fired oven and some induction burners and electrical equipment. Now they have like a palace back there. They have hotline. They have like 2 walk-ins.
What's the name of this restaurant?
Third Wave Cafe.
Is it still around?
Yeah, they're still open.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It's well known in New Smyrna. It's established. It's been there for, I want to say almost 10 plus years.
Oh,
now.
wow.
Yeah, it's been there for a while. But I started, it was like literally wood-fired oven, 1 induction burner, and it's grown.
That's
now they
great,
have
yeah.
hotline, 2 walk-ins, an enormous walk-in because they're tourist-driven, so they just get slammed.
Do you have a walk-in here?
Yeah, well, we had one when we started too. It was really tiny, and like my head would almost touch it, and then I could stick my arms out, and like they would touch the sides. It was old as hell, and like it was just. I mean, it worked. Albeit when we opened, it did die the first month we were open. Like,
Of course.
like some random piece. They're like, oh, this condensing thing. You get $200. I don't have $200. You know, I was
Yeah.
so broke. But you know, when we opened, so we had the oven, which I was like, all right, building everything around this. We had no other equipment, no other anything, because I didn't have any money for anything. We opened doors, I think, at like $600 or something.
Looking back on it, was it fun?
I don't know if it was fun. I just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I was just like, we're doing this. I think it was fun because it was just kind of like freewheeling, figuring it out.
It was like your first foray owning a restaurant, a pizzeria
Yeah.
too. So you're like, all right, this is it's exciting.
Yeah, it was the first time it was like fully mine.
Yeah.
Because I've opened restaurants for other people. And
As the chef?
Yeah, as a chef. And, Third Wave was like a consultant bit, and then I stayed on as chef, which I really wasn't planning to. Like I said, 2 hours of commuting every day. But, it worked out. So this was fun because it was like, I can do what I want. Which was good and bad
Because you did what you wanted?
I did what I wanted, and it was fun. I think after time, we're 7.5 years in.
That's hard too. Like getting 7 to 7.5 years as an independent pizzeria is not
hard.
easy.
No, not easy. I think it's gotten harder every single year, especially post-COVID. It's just gotten like, whoa, like the old things don't work.
Yeah.
And, how are we going to continue to survive?
What kind of pizza? So what kind of pizza do you serve here?
So we do new Neapolitan. So
Was that so new Neapolitan? People who are listening to this, it's like not technically Neapolitan because
no,
they have so many
it's
rigid
not.
rules.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with like if you want true Neapolitan, it can't be considered that because of we're not using 00 flour and San Marzano tomatoes and all the check marks that you can literally get and say this is DOP.
Yeah,
we don't have any of that. So we use Italian olive oil now, but we do organic American bread flour, American cheese, California tomatoes. And that's what I wanted because I was doing Neapolitan pizza out in New Smyrna, and it was good. I don't dislike it. I just was like, as it grew, I wanted to change it a little bit more to like what I wanted to eat, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was bored of doing the same thing because I've been doing it there for 3.5 years. So, and it's been an experiment. I was saying something like we're on dough iteration number 30 something. We've changed it
Really?
so many times. Yeah.
Why do you change it?
I just want to see if we could make it just a little bit, tweak it just a little bit better, or if we're like looking for something like, during COVID, like we're like, hey, let's add some more oil, fat content to this dough to provide better takeout.
Right.
Because we had a lower fat content. It was like 0.5%. Now it's up to 3%. And I think it translated to better takeout because if you put like true Neapolitan,
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's like it's really bad. Like
And
it's
like
really bad to go.
And you almost feel bad people taking it out because you're paying so much money because it is a high quality ingredient pizza, and you're like, all right, you're gonna take this home. It's gonna be not great.
Yeah.
You almost feel like I probably shouldn't do takeout here.
I didn't at the start.
I remember we're talking to you a long time ago.
refused.
You didn't do takeout. You like ripped the phone off the wall.
Yeah,
You didn't do any phone orders. You're like, nope, come in and eat it.
So doing what I wanted was good at the start. I feel like because ultimately I really lucked out at the start because I was blessed with some wonderful service staff that I'd worked with in fine dining, and they were awesome. They were like gangsters. They had all the tricks. They could sell you anything, man. Catch a popsicle salesman, right? They would sell you anything, but they were soignés. They have the moves. They could do all the best, best front facing service you could ever possibly ask for out the gate. No training needed. And
That's
they were
fantastic.
sick of the stuffy kind of, environment. So this was great. Like,
Looser vibe, more fun in the atmosphere.
but they knew the food was killer.
Yeah.
Like we worked together. They knew I could cook. They knew what I was doing. So out the gate, we were like, we started with a little takeout, and then at the end, at like I think week 2, I was like, no, not even week 2, because we got so many like people boomeranging back like, this is wrong. You don't know what you're doing. This is burnt. And I was like, dude, no, you don't know what you're ordering. That was how the phone went in the trash. my friend George, rest in peace, he passed. He was one of the first people that worked for me and helped me open this place. And he was a bartender and just service guy, awesome all around. And I was watching him answer the phone one night, and it was just stressing him out so bad that I just like took it and threw it. And I was like, you won't have to deal with that anymore.
Wow.
So, yeah, we really wanted to focus on the experience here in-house. No takeout, no, ruining what we work for, what we can do by putting it in a box, and not allowing us the ability to show our hospitality or, show off what we really want to do and what we really wanted to present from the start.
Plus, you're in Orlando too, so Orlando didn't have a reputation. It's growing now, But back 7.5 years ago, it probably had a really bad reputation when it came to pizza.
There was none. There was like Prado was doing pizza, which is like a fine dining Italian restaurant in Winter Park.
Yeah.
And they were doing pizza, and that was it. Like that was the extent of like anything extra beyond like New York style or whatever. That was
like
it.
Papa John's and Little Caesars, all those franchises are pretty high about it.
There's Little Caesars there. There's a Papa John's across the street. And
I
there's
saw
a
them
Pizza
coming in
Hut.
here.
Like legit. Like there's so many pizzerias around here, and they're all like chains.
It's so many restaurants in Orlando, and they're all chains.
Yeah,
I guess it's probably because people are from all over, and it's like comfort for them, right? Like you see, not that it's good food, but like a McDonald's, right? Like McDonald's doesn't have great hamburgers, but you kind of know what you're going to get when you go into a McDonald's, regardless of where you are.
Yeah, and that's, I think even some chains always talk to that about like Orlando's great because, you know, it's a testing ground to see if these things work across the country. I did work at a chain when I moved here. I worked at Red Lobster. So I was in culinary school. I worked at the Red Lobster.
What was that like? Fun?
It was interesting. It was not what I grew up working in independent restaurants, so it was very different. Like,
did you learn anything from there that you could bring into like a regular restaurant? Like, because sometimes
I mean, it was high pressure, and I like how they did things were not how I've done things in the past. Like it was, you know, very streamlined, very rigid.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they cooked everything in a microwave. Still do probably.
Seriously?
Hell yeah, dude. Chef Mike on the scene every day. All the pasta sauces, just throw it in, hit 3.
Oh my God.
I swear. So it was eye-opening. Everything comes out of a conveyor belt broiler oven. I mean, I was really good there because I've been in restaurants my whole life.
Well, that was easy for you then.
And I'd been in like high pressure, busy situations, so it was cool. It was easy for me. And I went from the second busiest one. It always competed first and second, the West Colonial, and I think iDrive always competed would be the busiest one. And then I went to the Waterford, which was their test model, which was like an open kitchen. It was just staffed by a bunch of like shitty 20-year-olds, and we were all friends, and it was fun. If we were just like out of hand. So it was a lot of fun. Did I learn stuff? I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, high pressure. I was the expo
systems. I think you probably learned more from like corporate restaurants, not so much how to cook, but like how to organize the inventory, how to do a prep list, maybe that kind of stuff.
No, not even, because the prep, you just showed up and stuff was there.
Really?
They had a whole prep team. You just showed up and I worked service.
You just showed up and threw shit in the microwave.
Yeah, shit in the microwave or shit in the conveyor oven, and you just made sure it got to the right plates. Wow. And you had the assembly team and the expo.
Note to self: never eat at the Red Lobster.
It's not great. Man, that was probably the job I smelled the worst from.
Yeah, really?
I literally had to take off clothes outside. It was so bad.
That's hilarious.
So bad.
That's awesome. So how do you approach pizza? Because you have two different style of pizzerias here. This is Curry Ford.
Yes.
You have the Neapolitan, like your version of what people would look at and say, hey, that might be a Neapolitan pizza.
Yes.
And then your other location, which is College Park, it's more of a New Jersey, New York style pizza, right?
Yeah, so what we do there is kind of like a riff on what I like to eat when I go to the Jersey Shore every summer. That's where I spent all my...
Any favorite place there that you go?
Yeah, Manco, Ocean City Boardwalk. Okay. So we have Manco is number 1. You know, we've really been messing with Preps a lot, which has been there equally as long. It's not the most popular one, but like when they're firing, they're firing. Like those slices are primo. We really like Max down in... once again, in Cape May.
Okay.
If they're firing off, those slices are fantastic. So, but they're all kind of follow the same kind of, you know, like formula. And I'll give a shout out to the OGs, Maruca's and Seaside Heights. I grew up with that.
Okay.
The restaurants I worked in, they did more traditional, like New York style and big giant pies. I think they were like 24-inch. They were huge.
Oh, wow.
They're huge pizzas, right? Huge slices. But it was more like New York style, so sauce on bottom, cheese on top, pretty straightforward, very Italian leaning. And that was where I worked for years. But down the way, there was Maruca's, which we would get pizza at because it was very different.
Yeah.
And, you know, there did, you know, cheese on bottom, sauce on top.
So that's what separates New Jersey from New York, the cheese on bottom, sauce on top?
I would say yes. In particular, it's because it's a Trenton-style pie.
Yeah.
That's what they say is a Trenton-style tomato pie that migrated South Jersey, Seaside. That's kind of where it proliferated, especially in, like, that Ocean City, South New Jersey kind of area. That's more typical. So you would see the cheese on bottom and then sauce on top and like a swirl. And, you know, like Manco has this cool like sauce hose thing. It has to be like a foot pedal and they like press the foot pedal, and it's like a hose. It's really cool. You got to go.
So it's almost like one of those robots, right? Like, 'cause if you see a picture of a robot making pizza, just the sauce just shoots out.
Yeah, kind of similar. I mean, they have guys making pies. They're just like dumping pies in those Rotaflex ovens. That's all they use. But so it's cheese on the bottom, sauce on top. It's usually a cheese blend, mozz, and something else. So I say secret cheese blend, but we use white cheddar in ours. So white cheddar, mozz blend, so different. Parm, pecorino, all that stuff is in there too. So it's like 4. But it's kind of a reflection of that. The crust, the dough is going to be flatter. It's not so much a pronounced cornichon like a New York style where you get that like, thumb thick, tight kind of crust. It's not really that. It's more we finger press out the whole thing, and so it's not crackery. I wouldn't say that. There's stuff going on. It just has like a, I don't know, character to it.
Is it better for takeout too?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you do more takeout in that location than this one?
Yeah. It's the stronger portion of that business.
When did you open that location?
About a year and a month ago.
So after 2020. Mm-hmm. So was that the thought process? Hey, listen, if something like that ever happens again, this place is perfect for takeout?
No, it wasn't really the thought process because I originally went into it as like, oh, we're going to kill the dine-in and because we have a pasta program there, and I want it to be more of like a dine-in experience thing. Yeah. And that wasn't what they wanted. And I say they as in the guests in the neighborhood. So I've had to like tweak
pivot a little.
And pivot. And we still have our pasta program, but before I was doing like a little bit more involved levels of that. So we'd have 5 different pastas we were making in-house, like all extruded plus 1 hand-filled and rolled, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
And they weren't selling. So we've now figured out that people want to-go, and to-go is, does very well there. We still do dine-in.
Yeah.
It's pretty, does pretty well. We still have pasta, but we cut it down to 1 shape and 4 sauces, and that works out really well.
So it's a learning process over there.
It's 100% because in my head, I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this, and people are going to want this. And, we only offered 16-inch to start. That was it. I was like, I don't want to deal with different sizes of doughs. And then we added 12-inch, and we figured out people really wanted 12-inch pies. And so it's just it's crazy what you learn in the first year of owning a restaurant. I think what you set out for and what you end up with is always going to be, if you have to be aware that it's going to change and be okay with that.
Yeah, definitely. I remember opening our second location and it was a hot mess because, I think we were talked about this a little bit before. When you have one location, we just wanted to duplicate what we did. But our staff in the business was so seasoned that we added things over time, and it was a lot easier for them to just work in the pizzeria, add a thing, and be like, okay, we have an extra thing on the menu. Mm-hmm. We took that same exact menu and opened a new location, and like you said, it was a hot mess because it was just like overwhelming for everybody to do all of that. And I wish I went back and I was like, all right, we're going to start with 10 things.
Yes.
And then once we master those 10 things, we can add things over time. It's a lot easier to add something than it is to take something away that you start with.
Yeah, I think it's more of like an ego and pride thing. You're like, you should like this because I know that's how I go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, well, they should be ordering, these cool pasta dishes and, no. No one cares.
It depends on what the location is, I guess,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
I guess, and what the focus is. And I keep having to remind myself it's Pizza Bruno.
Yeah.
Not Pasta Bruno.
Maybe we should do pasta
I know.
Bruno.
People ask all the time, and I'm like, you know what? That's right. We did that as like every Tuesday. We do that here a long time ago when we didn't have the second location. We do Pasta Bruno Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And, it was all, hand rolled. We do like 5 or 6, and that's when I was here like all the time, so it could be managed. But yeah, like I have to remind myself, people come there for the pizza, and that's what sells, and that's what we're doing, and that continues to be reinforced every week.
So do you make the dough? Like, did you make the recipes for the dough, or how did you learn how to make the dough? I know you worked in pizzerias. Just like what you've learned over the time being in restaurants and pizzerias, and just kind of like, all right, I know how to do this recipe. I want it to taste like this. Let me just adapt and make that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we started here, I'll flat out and say it wasn't great pizza.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was just inconsistent, and it was more reflective of like a classic Neapolitan pizza, and I really wasn't working with like a baker's percentage. And then I called Falco one day out of the blue, or I reached out to him on Instagram. This is before he was doing consulting. This is when he was still at Roberta's. And I was like, hey, man, I've been a fan of his stuff and really liked what he did with, Roberta's. And then we connected, and I was like, holy crap, this is cool. and we talked about dough and what I was doing. He's like, hey, you know, this is how you do a baker's percentage. This is what it is. So I applied that here, and then pizza got a little bit better.
Okay.
And then over time, other people have been involved. My friend Tyler from Gainesville, he's down in Miami now. He's a little bit everywhere, but he's a sourdough guy. So he really preached the mantra of like sourdough pizza and, you know, doing, you know, natural leavening, I should say natural leavening. And so he taught me how to do that. And that was pretty early on. That was like 2017. So it was like pretty shortly after we opened. So he taught me how to do that and kind of worked that into the process. And like, I've been like, oh, this is great. And here's why. It's added, you know, flavor. We can control the pizza a little bit better as far as like how we get to, you know, perfect pizza. Like, whereas yeast, sometimes it's like, you know, temperature or something goes, it's like, oh, crap.
If the yeast, is the yeast alive when you get it? Or?
Yeah. Did they put, you know, too much ice water and they killed it and it didn't rise at all? So, yeah, over time, I've learned a lot just from other people, but also changing and trying out different, you know, ways of doing things. I'm not afraid to do that. Like, I'd rather change something with like, hey, I want to see what this outcome is, you know, rather than being like, I can't change because I'm too afraid.
Right.
Like, oh, it's a disaster. Okay, well, now we know, you know, like okay, that's good. That's totally happened where it's like total disaster and like we lost, you know, a night.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I like that you are able to do that, though. There's a lot of people who own pizza shops who aren't able to do that. They're not able to take that risk. They're so afraid to lose one customer that they won't change something that they know they should change, but they just don't have the balls, I guess, to change it.
Yeah, it's hard, man, because you have to think of all the moving parts that you have within the four walls, mainly staff, ingredients, and like changing one thing throws a lot of things off. So it's fearful. I get that. I'm like bad at just being like, hey, we're changing this and like disregard. Everybody's like, look at this guy.
Here we go again.
Yeah. I've gotten better about that. I'm more methodical with changes rather than just like coming in and be like, oh, we're doing it like this now, and they're just like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, I'm the same way. My wife's over there. She's kind of listening, I'm sure. We're the same way with like with business decisions. I'm like, nope, we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
She's like, you should probably think about that for a second before you do that. I'm like, yeah, you probably. No, I think I'm going to do it. And then I take a step back and, like most part, she's always right.
Yeah.
I probably should have taken a step back and not made a rash decision so quick and thought it out, talked to some people before I decided to actually do it.
Well, impulsivity, I think, is a trait that can be good, but also is bad.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's like the impulsivity thing is like I think it's inherent with people that are in business and like see opportunity to try to improve something or get a better result, right? And the impulsivity to do that, I think, is coming from a good place, but ultimately sometimes like needs to be, you know, ratcheted back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A couple levels, because I've definitely slowed down on the impulsivity. Like, I'll do some research before I make a change. Like, I'll be like, I don't want to do that anymore. Let's do this, and I'm like, all right, just like
hold up a second.
Yeah, let's put some data together and see if this makes sense. So, I get that, the impulsivity thing. So that, you know, but that's never stopped me from like changing the dough or making things. But back to how did I make these recipes? A lot of it was trial and error. A lot of it's just growing, especially here. I really like pizza dough here. I think we've got to a point where it's so consistent all the dang time. And with pizzerias, that's huge.
Yeah, the dough is the most important thing. I went to a pizzeria the other day. I'm not going to say the name.
Okay.
But it's in the Orlando area.
Okay.
And it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And it all starts with the dough. And I think that you can have okay sauce and cheese. But, I mean, sauce, if you just don't do anything with it and you just get a good quality tomato,
yes,
you're going to make pretty good sauce. And cheese is cheese. Not that cheese is cheese, but, like, there's higher qualities and, you know. But the dough is where it all starts. And if your dough sucks, your pizza's not going to be good.
Yeah, it does carry at that extra kind of level. And that's what I say here is, like, we get the fifth flavor on the back of the tongue because of the natural leavening, where it does create that extra, which you wouldn't get from, like, just a standard Neapolitan pizza.
Right.
Now, College Park, you know, the goal was to get that away from this. I could literally port this dough to that temperature of cooking, and it's awesome. And it works well. It could be like New York style, if you will.
Yeah.
But we want to do something different, or I want to do something different. And I literally was digging in on pizza forums for this one restaurant's recipe because they keep it lock and key.
Oh, really?
Manco, yeah, they keep it lock and key.
You didn't get a job there and like, hey, I'm going to apply for it.
No, I don't think that would have applied. Thought about it, but they might Google me and find some stuff out or recognize my face because I'm at the counter all the time, just like
Staring.
Oh,
Can I help you, sir? No, I'm just here observing.
I'm eating slices. I'm just like staring at like all the movements, everything. Just because like I'm like, what are they doing? You know, you could pick things apart. I mean, that's how a lot of the early. Like,
I mean, that's
functions.
how. If you're in a restaurant or you own a pizzeria, you totally go to every other pizzeria. You go into a pizzeria and you like kind of see what you can observe them doing that you can kind of take and bring into your pizzeria.
Hell yeah,
I do that all the time. Even though I don't own a pizzeria anymore, I still do that.
Well, I think it's just you, like going back to like the thing, like how are you going to achieve a better result? And you see somebody like, how are they getting this result? And just by visual, you can usually pull something out of it, or just like, you know, or if it's a shit show, you're like, oh, I can see. I go to restaurants and like, I can immediately tell within like 30 seconds, I'm like, oh no, this is going to be bad. We shouldn't be here. Or if something's going south, like I almost want to get up and be like,
can I help you for a second?
Can I just hop in here and get your shit straight? Like, it's no problem for me to do that, just to get everybody's heads back in the game, so to speak. But so back to the Pizza Bruno 2 dough. So a lot of it was observational, and I spent a lot of time in South Jersey, and I asked some local pizzeria guys. They work there, and some they never worked in the dough room. It's like super coveted. So I was digging around on the internet, and I found. Like,
did you find it?
Yeah, on some forum from like the mid 2000s.
Was it like the pizza forum? Like was it pizza? I know there's a pizza forum.
Yeah, it's not the. Kuban, he had that forum back in the day. I think it might have been that forum, like it was Slice or something like that. But there was a listing for the dough, and it roughly translates to about like a 67% hydration.
Did it tell you like the flour and everything they use?
Yeah, like because I worked at some other pizzeria. They didn't say the name, but they were like, oh, we have an unhealthy level of competition. I was tasked with trying to get a duplicate of their dough. Yeah. So he put exactly how he got there, and it ended up being like 66, 67 hydration, and we kind of went from there. And as I've gone, I've kind of tweaked it a little bit. We do a poolish there, we do dry yeast, and that's our leavening there. So it's a little different. We do way higher fat content and a little bit more salt, and the dough is not aged as long. So it's about a 24-hour-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's great.
I like it. I've been there. Yeah. I enjoy that pizza a lot.
Yeah. We get a lot of huge depth of flavor in that dough, and it's not like that restaurant that I like in New Jersey, Manco Manco. Theirs is like weird. It almost has no body. It's crispy, but it has like almost no body, and it's very different. Like, it's very unique. But ours does have a bit more character, a bit more chew. But I like it. I think it's great. Yeah. It's almost. It's kind of what I'm shooting for, but it has its own uniqueness to be like, it's a riff off this thing. It's not that thing 100%, but it's like my version of that, which is cool. I think that's cool with pizza. If you can, make something that's uniquely yours, I think that's the whole
that's what makes pizza great too, right?
Yeah, it's the spirit of it. Yeah. And I think when you talk about like, what's the best pizza? I mean, it could be, that's subjective to you.
Totally.
I mean, but there is some generally crappy pizza. Like, let's not get twisted.
The majority of pizza out there is average.
Yeah.
I think the majority of pizza, because a lot of people go into the pizza business just wanting to have a business.
Yeah.
If they don't want to make great pizza and have that be the business, you're like, what? I just want to have a pizza shop.
Yeah.
A lot of them were from the 80s and 90s who opened a pizza shop because it was very lucrative back then.
Very lucrative.
So it's a little different now.
The boat.
Yeah, right? Totally. I was around. I was in the pizza business pre-credit cards, pre-online ordering. A large cheese pizza was $7, and you still made like 50% profit margin on it. It was only $7.
Yeah.
So I was around in those days.
I know. I was thinking about that working in the Shore in Jersey, and I was like, 24-inch pizza was $13 in 1996. And what it cost them to make that was probably $1.
Yeah, right?
Like, at best.
The problem is people still think it costs $1 to make a pizza.
Yeah, no.
And it's 25 years later. They're like...
Does not.
Every time I post something online, they're like, about, profit margin going down or how hard it is to run a pizzeria. Like, yeah, but it costs like 50 cents to make a pizza. I'm like, when's the last time, if ever, you've made a pizza?
Yeah, go to Publix to make one pizza. You're going to spend $25.
I was at Whole Foods the other day. In one dough ball, Whole Foods sells for $4.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was like, how do they sell one dough ball for $4? That's crazy.
I think Publix is the same. Publix is the same as like $5 or something bucks.
It's unbelievable.
But hey,
that's why I want to do this show. I want to go kind of travel around in person. This is different than our podcast. We do have one of those, but I want to go to people who I like their pizza.
Oh,
that's the criteria.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think you said it before, but I'll take the compliment.
So if I'm in your pizzeria doing a live interview, I like your pizza.
All right.
That's cool. Well, last question I'll ask you.
Okay.
What's like your perfect pizzeria?
I don't know. I think
If you could create your perfect pizzeria, like, it doesn't matter. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter about sales or like what you think is going to sell the best. If you said, all right, this is what I would want to do and want to create, what would be your perfect pizzeria? What
we're
you've
sitting
done?
in it. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, at the end of the day, what I came up with or what I wanted to do is ultimately what, like, it wasn't like I'm trying to replicate something else. Like, all this is organic, and it came to be just through the years of being here. And it's like, it just became something that, like, I think is a reflection of myself. Like, for the better or worse, I put a lot of myself into my businesses, which it's hard because, like, I feel like, I put a lot of myself in it. It's a reflection of me and, like, reflection of what I am. It'd be hard to duplicate, right?
Yeah.
So, like,
But like Gordon Ramsay does it.
Out. Yeah, I can't stamp these out.
Yeah.
Like, I always feel like I have a portion of myself involved. Sometimes I'm like, God, I wish I could just make it a little bit more cookie cutter, so it's not like, dependent on me or.
But then it might not be as interesting.
Exactly. So I think between both locations, mind you, I think both locations, I like their environments. I like what they are. They reflect what I think is a good pizzeria. Back to the second location, looking back on it, I was like, I kind of wish I would have done it a little different and probably stepped completely away from table service. I think we have talked about that in the past, but it's just something I look at and I go, maybe I should have just followed my gut to a little bit of a different place, which, in business, sometimes you're like, I don't know if that's the right decision and maybe because of this. But looking back, I wish I would have maybe done it a little differently. Not to say it's bad, but, followed my gut more intuitively. Here, I from the start, I just was like, this is what I want to do. There was no roadblocks. There was no second guess. There was no, like, something to compare to.
Right.
And I think that was the beauty of it. There was no, like, hindrance or, like, other, like, what's the word I'm looking for? So there's no, like, other things that have come in your way. You're, like, making you question your decisions.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, no roadblocks or anything like that that said, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is great. I'm like, that's great when you own a pizzeria and it's exactly what you want to have out of it, because it's not going to be easy.
No.
Even if it is what you want it to be, there's going to be circumstances that come up. Like, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with equipment, you're dealing with, ingredients. So there's always going to be things that come up that make it not go the way you want it to go. But as long as you enjoy that process, I think any business is hard, regardless of what business it is. There's always things that go wrong. But I get the main part about being in business is, like, being okay with, like, how it is and being like, you know what, I actually like this. I built this. It's mine. I enjoy it. Yeah.
And I think over time, too, from what I started with, there was always that idea of, like, this is where I want this to go after, like, I want it to go here. I want it to go here, like, as far as, like, expanding after COVID or during COVID, really, expanding to offer, be able to not have an hour and a half, 2 hour waits, because we had one oven to cook everything, and now we have two. Adding the patio, which is super awesome. That was a turnaround for a dump truck or so, like a garbage truck that they didn't even use. And we had picnic tables out there to start with a couple string lights. Now it's a whole patio. And then, eventually we want to kick out these windows here and add a pass-through so it's a little bit more accessible from inside, and just flesh it out more and more as we go to, like, the ultimate ideal, which at the end of the day, I don't know what that is, but I'm sure something will present itself.
Yeah, it's like something, I don't think you ever get there. It's always like a destination. It's always the destination is the location. I think they said that in a movie somewhere.
Yeah.
And
I've grown to like this place more and more, even though the difficulty of it at times I've been resentful of this place more than a few times. I've been very resentful of it and everything about it. But I've, recently over the past, some time, I've been like, no, it's good. I like it here, and I could see us continuing here for a lot longer.
Well, I appreciate you. Pizza Bruno in Orlando.
Thanks.
Curry, Ford, and College Park. 2 locations. If you're in the Orlando area, definitely go check it out. We'll link everything up, your social media, your website, everything in the comments below. Thank you for letting me hit the road and be on the first one of these new series we're doing here.
Awesome. Glad to help.
I appreciate you letting me do this and kind of taking over the restaurant for a little bit.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Bruno.
Yeah, thank you.
That's cool.